Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 406, Mysticism in English Literature. This is a work by Spurgeon, Caroline Spurgeon. Very well written, 129 pages, so it's an intermediate read. It supplies two things, and link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon, by the way. The second and third links are to my books blogs. There are other comparable works available there. This will go under the Mysticism header because it does cover that topic. And it focuses on three main groups of mysticism as applied to literature. And some of it does delve further back. It looks at the inspiration of that mysticism in more antiquated material, so Plato and stuff like that. That's sort of par for the course for works of this kind. It focuses on nature mysticism, so the veneration of nature, symbology and iconography derived from nature, the English countryside, flowers and stuff like that. Philosophical material, so you're talking about sociopolitics to an extent, as well as just core philosophy, and that takes off a great deal from antiquity. You've got the Romanticist era and stuff like that. It's all sort of intertwined. You've got Bronte and some of these other, Blake certainly. And then you have religious mysticism. A lot of the poetry and prose up to and within this particular era, within that kind of English literature, especially with poetry, but not singularly, is very much inclined towards spiritual and also natural sort of forces being intertwined with the work. A lot of the statements have to do with that sort of mystic experience. Some of them outright name mystics from the past, figures from antiquity specifically. It's a very well-written work. And why it's specifically valuable for anyone that's interested in the subject is twofold. Number one, it's quoting a great deal of the material. It's evincing its point by giving specific examples. So it's not just a very dry academic laundry list of, hey, this is William Blake born in, delved into mysticism at this church, and he met a monk, and it doesn't do that. I like dry academic works, but a lot of people don't. This is the opposite. It's very flowery, almost theatrical at times. If you're interested in the actual poetry and prose, it supplies a great deal of it. Secondly, it contains a very exhaustive bibliography, so you can specifically refer to all of the works that are talked about. You can then expand further. If you're interested in the subject of mysticism in English literature, and to an extent its origins with antiquity, this work definitely has you covered. Some of the poetry and prose is more interesting than others. Of course, if you're looking at this period within English literature, you get a lot of the very ethereal, sort of Art Nouveau-ish style stuff, which I like. I like that sort of flowy, relaxed, comfy literature, you could say. It's funny because I'm sitting there, 1 minute I'll be listening to black metal, and the next minute, I'll be reading The Elfin Ship. And I would say that The Elfin Ship, I'd like to write a document on that and how that sort of intertwines with mysticism as well. Pro tip, it does. I don't know whether that was intentional or not, but there is definitely a lot of symbology, etc. there that ties into that particular subject. It is sword and sorcery, so it sort of makes sense. And looking at this literature, though, some of it is maybe a little bit beyond what I'm interested in. I'm not really that interested in the more dense side of literature. The sort of, I guess you could call it bulky poetry, if that makes any sense. It's overly verbose. It over-explains and so forth. You've really got a dichotomy, by the way. If you read through this work, you'll note that between the various authors here, there is a definitive comparison between poetic and prose styles. One side is very descriptive, obtuse, you could say, if you don't enjoy that kind of material, and over-describes. The other side is more scant. It's more airy. It comes from the air element, or whatever you'd have it. That sort of light, fluffy, cloud-like experience. It's fleeting, and then you can talk about mortality, by the way, in the same way. It's fleeting. It's momentarily beautiful. Oh, look up at the sky. That cloud is so wonderful. Now it's gone. I kind of like that style a little bit more. You get both of them in this particular work. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It covers dozens of different authors of poetry and prose. Very highly recommended if you're into that. I'm thinking about making an occult poetic collection, actually, and putting some of the content from this in it. Although, again, some of the passages are not actual poetry. They're taken from prose works. Strongly recommended. That's about all. Peace out.